Okay, lesson 21, workbook question 10. In right triangle ABC, angle B is a right angle. Measure of angle A is equal to 30 degrees. AC is equal to 14 degrees, and AB is equal to X. What is the value of X, the length of segment AB? So, the value of X is blank units. Enter the value that fills in the blank in the previous sentence like this, 42. So the first thing is it a right triangle? Yes. So if yes, to find missing side lengths, we could use either the Pythagorean theorem, which, in order to do that, you need two known side lengths, or we could use trig functions, and you need one known angle besides the 90 degrees, and one known side length. So then if we look back at our information, we do not have two known side lengths. We do have one known angle besides our 90-degree angle, which is 30 degrees, and we have one known side length. So we're going to use the trig functions. Now trig functions, we could have sine of the angle A is equal to the ratio of the opposite side length divided by the hypotenuse. And we have cosine of our angle is equal to the ratio of the adjacent side length divided by the hypotenuse side length. So the first thing to do is label triangle side lengths based on angle chosen. So I'm going to choose the 30-degree angle. You could choose this one if you wanted to. That's fine. I'm just using this one because it's the one we know. So the first one that I actually label is always across from the 90 degrees because I can always find my 90-degree angle, and that side length is the hypotenuse side length. Now the next one I do is always across from the angle I chose. So across from the 30-degree angle, this side length is going to be the opposite side length. And the last one is the adjacent side length. So segment BA is the adjacent side length. So now I go through here in my head and I say, okay, if I have to find the value of X, and X is the adjacent side length, which trig function has adjacent side length in it? Because I have to find the value of X. So sine of angle A is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. That did not have the adjacent side length in it, so I'm not going to use sine of angle A. Cosine of angle A is equal to the adjacent side length divided by the hypotenuse. So it does have the adjacent side length, which is the side length that we're trying to find, divided by our hypotenuse. So that's the one that we're going to use. To decide which trig function to use. So I just stepped you through how I decided to use cosine of angle A. So angle A, the angle we chose is 30 degrees. The adjacent side length is X. The hypotenuse is 14 degrees. 14. So I want to clarify something. This A was very generic for me, and it was not based off of this labeling. This could be labeled X, Y, Z, uppercase X, uppercase Y, uppercase Z, and I still would have chosen cosine of angle A because the A is representing the angle I chose. So to me, this A represents the angle I chose. So that's just some clarification on it. All right, so now we're going to solve for the value of x. So now we have cosine of 30 degrees is equal to x, which is the adjacent side length, divided by the hypotenuse side length, which was 14. So now I'm going to take a deep breath. Even though cosine of 30 looks weird, the reason why they leave it as cosine of 30 is if you type in cosine of 30, it gives you a lot of numbers to write down. I would much rather write cosine of 30 down than to have to write all of these numbers. And this number keeps going on after this 8. This is just how many numbers our calculator can hold. So I'm going to take a deep breath and just remember that cosine of 30 represents a really long decimal, and I want to just keep it as concise and simple as possible. So I'm going to keep it as cosine of 30. Now I want to solve for x, and x is being divided by 14. So in order to move the divided by 14, we multiply by 14 to both sides. So 14 times cosine of 30 is 14 times cosine of 30. That's going to equal, any number can be written as a fraction over 1. And remember, multiplying fractions, you multiply straight across. So x times 14 is 14x, or x14, however you want to write it. 14 times 1 is 14. Now, simplify and reduce. So 14 divided by 14 reduces down to 1. This is going to equal 1 times x is 1x. In math, we normally write it just as x and understand that there is an invisible 1 there. So then we have 14 times cosine of 30, and I'm going to use the calculator at this point. First thing that I'm going to make sure is happening is right here. This is RAD, this is degrees. Make sure it's in degrees because the angle was given in degrees. So we had 14 times the cosine of 30 degrees. Close parentheses. It's 12.12. And so this 4 is lower than 5, so this 2 stays the same. So this is 1212. That is equal to the value of x. So when you type in your answer, type in the value of 12.12.